There's a certain kind of person who treats everyone with kindness, but never seems to offer that same kindness to themselves. They're the one answering late-night phone calls, staying behind to help a coworker, smiling and saying, "It's okay," when someone else makes a mistake. But almost nobody sees what happens after the door closes. When they're finally alone, the conversation inside their head completely changes. The gentle voice they offer everyone else becomes cold. "You're useless. You always ruin everything. Nobody really needs you." The frightening part isn't that these thoughts exist. It's that they believe them. What's even stranger is that they'd never speak to another person this way. A friend could make the exact same mistake, and they'd respond with patience instead of judgment. Maybe you know someone like this. Or maybe that someone is you. If so, this isn't simply a personality trait. It's a psychological mechanism quietly shaping the way your mind sees itself. And today, Mind Decoded is going to uncover why. Let's begin with one simple fact. You're not alone. Self-hatred is far more common than most people realize. Many young adults carry a deep dissatisfaction with their appearance, abilities, or achievements. At some point, most of us have wondered whether we're truly good enough. So why does the mind keep returning to that conclusion? Part of the answer lies in something psychologists call the negativity bias. Your brain naturally gives more weight to negative experiences than positive ones. One criticism can stay with you for days, while 10 compliments disappear within minutes. Not because the criticism is more accurate, but because your brain evolved to notice threats before anything else. But here's the surprising part. The way you see yourself isn't always the truth. In one study, participants rated several voice recordings without knowing that one of them was their own. Before recognizing it, many people actually rated their own voice more positively than they did after discovering it belonged to them. The recording never changed. Only the identity behind it did. The moment they thought, "That's me," they became far more critical. Think about what that means. Some of the qualities you dislike most about yourself may not actually be the problem. You simply judge yourself by a harsher standard than you judge everyone else. So where does that standard come from? To answer that, we need to understand how the brain responds to happiness and pain. Researchers once followed 3 groups of people: lottery winners, accident survivors, and ordinary people. The lottery winners experienced a surge of happiness, but it didn't last. As the excitement faded, they gradually returned to their previous level of happiness. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. Pain followed a different path. The accident survivors often carried emotional distress much longer, replaying what happened and focusing on what they had lost. Joy fades. Pain lingers. At first, that feels unfair. But from an evolutionary perspective, it makes perfect sense. Imagine living thousands of years ago. You discover a bush full of ripe berries, then suddenly hear movement behind the trees. Ignoring the berries means going hungry. Ignoring the sound could cost you your life. The predators are gone. The survival system isn't. Your brain still reacts to criticism, rejection, and failure as if they're threats. That's why one painful memory can outweigh dozens of positive ones, and why your inner critic often sounds far more convincing than it should. But evolution is only part of the story. The other part begins much earlier. It begins with the messages we absorb while growing up. Many of us learn that love, praise, and acceptance have to be earned. Psychologists call this conditional positive regard. Instead of believing we're worthy simply because we exist, we begin believing our value depends on meeting other people's expectations. Think about a child who proudly brings home an A, only to hear, "Why wasn't it an A+?" Or a child who's praised for always being helpful, but criticized whenever they show anger, sadness, or exhaustion. A child can't fully understand that adults have their own fears, stress, and frustrations. So the simplest explanation becomes, "Something must be wrong with me." Over time, that thought turns into a quiet set of rules. I have to be perfect. I have to make everyone happy. I have to earn my place. Those rules don't disappear as we grow older. They become the lens through which we see ourselves. A mistake at work no longer feels like just a mistake. A disagreement no longer feels like just a disagreement. Instead, each one becomes evidence that we're somehow not enough. And that's where another psychological pattern begins. Inside your mind, there isn't just one version of you. There's your actual self, the person you are today. Your ideal self, the person you hope to become. And your ought self, the person you believe you have to become to be accepted by others. The greatest pressure usually comes from that last one. Imagine you've had an exhausting day. Your actual self wants to rest, but your ought self says yes to one more request because you don't want to disappoint anyone. From the outside, you look dependable, generous, and calm. Inside, you're exhausted. Psychologists call this self-discrepancy theory. The wider the gap between your actual self and your ought self, the more guilt, anxiety, and self-criticism your brain creates. But here's something worth thinking about. Why is it so easy to forgive other people, yet so difficult to forgive yourself? Because you don't judge them with the same information. With other people, you only see a few pages of their story. With yourself, you carry the entire book. You remember every awkward conversation, every failure, every regret, and every embarrassing moment. Over time, your mind stops acting like a fair observer and starts acting like a ruthless judge. By the end of the day, the mask finally comes off. The inner critic gets louder not because you're weak, but because you've spent the entire day trying to become someone you were never meant to be. Understanding where that voice comes from is the first step. The next step is learning that you don't have to believe everything it says. So, how do you begin changing a pattern that may have been with you for years? Not by forcing yourself to love yourself. The brain doesn't change because of one inspiring sentence. It changes through small, repeated experiences. Fortunately, psychology offers a few practical ways to start. The first is called pronoun shifting. When you make a mistake, your inner voice usually says, "I'm so stupid." In that moment, one mistake becomes your entire identity. Instead, pause for a few seconds and change the language. Try saying, "You're feeling embarrassed because that didn't go well." Or, "They're being too hard on themselves right now." That small shift creates psychological distance. Instead of being trapped inside the emotion, you begin looking at it from the outside. Then ask yourself one simple question. If a close friend made this exact same mistake, what would I say to them? The answer is usually far kinder than anything you'd ever say to yourself. The second practice is learning to accept compliments. People with a strong inner critic often reject praise without realizing it. Someone says, "You did a great job." And the automatic response is, "It was nothing." Or, "I just got lucky." Instead, try something different. Simply say, "Thank you." Then stay quiet for 5 seconds. Don't explain it away. Don't minimize it. Just let yourself receive it. You don't have to believe every compliment immediately. You only have to stop rejecting it. Over time, your brain begins treating positive feedback as something it can safely accept. The third practice is changing the way you think about self-care. Many people believe that if they stop criticizing themselves, they'll become lazy or selfish. But that's not how the mind works. Your patience, attention, and emotional energy are limited. Every day you spend helping others, handling pressure, and meeting expectations uses some of that energy. If you spend what's left attacking yourself, burnout becomes inevitable. You can't keep everyone else's battery full while your own is almost empty. Self-care isn't selfish. It's maintenance. It's what allows you to keep showing up for the people you care about without running yourself into the ground. Letting go of self-hatred won't happen overnight. These patterns were built over years, and your brain will naturally want to return to them. But here's the truth that matters most. You don't need to become perfect before you deserve peace. You only need to stop holding yourself to a harsher standard than everyone else. Offer yourself the same patience, compassion, and understanding that you so freely give to other people. Once you do, you'll begin to see that many of the judgments you've believed for years were never as true as they felt. Have you ever caught yourself speaking to yourself in a way you'd never speak to someone you love? If you have, share your experience in the comments. What helped you might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If today's video helped you understand your mind a little better, subscribe to Mind Decoded and join us as we continue exploring the hidden psychology behind the way we think, feel, and live. Until next time, take care of your mind and be a little kinder to yourself.